was 16 years old in the mid-1970s, hanging around the local airport, I used to listen to the old-timers sit on the porch swing at the airport office, and they talked about flying the beam. I watched DC-3s taxi by with those old-fashioned antennas, those automatic direction finding antennas, NDBs. These antennas stuck on the bottom of the airplane like a squid on a killer whale. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw my first Loran radio installed inside a state-of-the-art Beech 18 airplane. Well, the Beech 18 wasn't state-of-the-art, and the radial engines certainly weren't state-of-the-art, but the Loran was, because I just hadn't seen that before. In fact, most of the guys at the airport hadn't seen the Loran. Actually, the Loran dated back to World War II. What was probably state-of-the-art was the transistor, or that was common day in the 70s, but the state-of-the-art was the microchip, the silicon chip. Development during World War II saw the advent of two hyperbolic navigation systems. The British researcher Dr. Charles Lippy developed what was called the GEE system, GEE. The HS2 radio box was what he developed for use by the aerial bombers flying the Lancasters during World War II. At the same time in the United States, researchers at Massachusetts Institute of Technology were developing technology for the Coast Guard and the Army Air Corps and the Navy, and this was the Loran system. Now, this seems like pretty simple stuff in that you put radio antennas on the ground and you broadcast a signal and you measure the amount of time it takes to get to that signal. But the math underneath it just seems like a computation of the time the signal left and the time the signal was received. And this would appear that you use the radius around the antenna to come up with some kind of triangulation. But actually it's a little bit more deeper than that. This hyperbolic system, it means that the radio waves don't travel in a true radius, and that it's a hyperbola signal shaped radius that these signals put out. This requires some kind of map that's got coordinated offset lines that this could all be calculated by a navigator. The other thing is different frequencies travel at different speeds. The radio operator of the G system looked at an oscilloscope, and looking at the phase shift differential on the oscilloscope, he would calculate the distance to station. And so this was a pretty complex thing, looking at two measurements, distance to station, coming up with a triangulation. That was a system that was a hyperbola-shaped radio signal. The advantage of the Loran system is it used lower frequencies, and this makes a AM signal which will travel a further distance. So the British G system was a little bit more limited in range, a higher frequency, and the Loran used the lower AM frequency ranges. The Brits were able to put their system into operation a little bit earlier than the Americans were. The Loran finally saw service in 1943 with some limited use. The benefactor of the Loran system was the Army Air Corps 8th Air Force, which saw some use of this equipment in 1943. The Decca system was a similar system developed by a British company post-World War II. Their claim was that it was a better system, and all I had to go on is what I read on the internet, and you know how trustworthy that could be. The Decca system was tried during the Vietnam War and utilized a scrolling paper map installed in a UH-1 Huey helicopter. I've talked to several Vietnam vets, but I have not heard much about the Decca system. Now, Vietnam is a small country. Much of the sighting, marking, and for bombing and air assaults was done by a forward air controller flying a single-engine aircraft. This was a Cessna. So what the forward air controller would do is he would observe conflicts in his area, and he would shoot a phosphorus rocket at the target, and then the attack airplanes would come in and shoot for the smoke. But forget Decca, let's go back to Loran. The first thing I remember from Loran was being able to see the latitude and longitude of my location. Now this was fantastic. Those days of dead reckonings, we were using sectional charts. I could take a lat and long, and I could look at my sectional chart and see right where we were. The thing that was absolutely unbelievable was that the radio could give you a distance and bearing to your station. You could enter in a waypoint, and it would tell you what the distance and what the heading was. This I couldn't believe. Now we did at that time have, of course, VOR, VHF, omnidirectional ranges. And in the 1970s, that was pretty much common state-of-the-art stuff. Distance measuring equipment, a DME could give you distance to the VOR station, and that was pretty cool too. But what this Loran system could do was just absolutely amazing to me. So here's my question to our readers, and that is, why did it take so long to get Loran systems into civilian aircraft? Was it the cost of these radio sets? Was it the advent of the transistor? Or was it the advent of the computer chip? Or was it something else? Thanks for watching. I'm Tim Morris and I'm with RepairStationTraining.com. We do inspection authorization refresher courses. You can find us at www.RepairStationTraining.com.